As promised, I'm right back at y'all. This is Astrology and Religion, the root of all religions, free will versus fatalism, sun, Orion, and Sirius worship by CG DAHLIN. From the Old Testament, myths of Native Americans, African tribes, and paganism across the world. All religions and spiritualities seem to always include a fascination with the stars and planets. Although astrology has been degraded by modern times, it is intertwined in the deepest subjects of our existence. In this talk, we start to decode the myths of the past and introduce ourselves to astrotheology.
Okay, welcome to session 7. This is on astrology very loosely. This is technically considered astrotheology, being that there is a strong belief that all the major religions of the world are in fact rooted in worship around the stars. This is something that we can find across many cultures. This is, I will be elaborating on this today, but it's an important topic to me personally. This is something that I focused a lot on in my undergraduate years, specifically on the mixed relationship of astrology inside of Christianity, the whats and the whys and the wheres in scripture. And historically speaking, astrology has been a topic of fascination for me since I was a teenager, not necessarily in how it's been made out in the modern day, but more in what it was historically, and how we can use it to understand where we come from ancestrally. Regardless of what we think about astrology, it was of the utmost importance to our ancestors of practically, no, I will say every culture of the ancient world. The common impression of what astrology is essentially a pseudoscience, as it's been claimed under the general belief of science and scientism. However, it seems that the Reformation undertaken by Christianity and then later the birth of rationalism and science from Christianity would immediately give a bad rap to astrology. On the YouTube channel that I post all these talks to, there is a talk on the history of astrology that goes over this. This is something that I've discussed before, but today I want to specifically discuss more of, first, for one, how it underlies our history and Christianity and Judaism. And also, I hopefully want to have some time to discuss the philosophical implications of believing in astrology and how this discussion has permeated the thought of human history in regards to free will and fatalism. So with that introduction out of the way, we should begin to understand how the ancients looked at astrology by saying that they began religion by anthropomorphizing the seasons illustrated by the constellations. So to look up in the sky and to realize that the stars hold relevance to the passing seasons. And accordingly, you give these constellations characteristics. You anthropomorphize them, whether they are represented by animal or by a type of archetypal figure. So the zodiac, or the zodiacos kyklos, as it was created or nurtured by the Greeks, was one of the first conceptual symbols of the ancient world, specifically the Western world. So to have the wheel and to have the sun in the middle was one of these first signs of very abstract thought. Now, before I go much further, we have to give credit to the fact that if you can imagine, all of us as a human society are put at ground zero. You know, we're back to hunter-gatherer times, a very minimal civilization. And we all come together in some way, the ancient past comes together in some way to be able to categorize and divide and name and understand the moving wheel of the stars in the sky. This is not just a great navigational feat, but the very effort shows a fervent dedication to understanding the stars, a fundamental fascination with what the stars are, what they do. So we can start by understanding this by looking at Aquarius. Now, many people think Aquarius is a water sign, but it's actually an air sign, but we're not going to get into these technicalities. But Aquarius is referred to as the water bearer, and this is the time of the year where the spring rains begin, or they did begin, based off the people who was naming these names. The Greeks gave this name. So the water bearer is the time of the year where the rain comes. In ancient Egypt, we have Horus, which is the big deal of ancient Egypt. Everything that Horus does, mind you, Horus is a sun god. Everything that he does in this lore, in this mythology, is a metaphor for the sun's movements. If you read through these old myths, you're seeing a personification of what the sun does in the sky. There is no difference between the god and the sun. What is happening in space is the god. Thus why the planets are named after Greek gods. So in Egyptian, it was always about Horus versus Set, or sunrise versus sunset, and light versus dark. This theme is completely intertwined in our history. I mean, all of our stories are intertwined in this duality, and our concepts and abstractions and mentalities are based off of this polarity, this dualism between light and dark, or sunrise and sunset. Now, here's where it has to get a little controversial, because Horus was born on December 25th, was born of a virgin with a star in the east, adorned by 3 gods, was a teacher at 12, baptized and made ministry at 30, and had 12 disciples, God's anointed sons, and was referred to as the Lamb of God. And after being betrayed by Typhon, Horus was crucified and resurrected after 3 days. This is by no means the beginning or end of how many similarities there are between Christianity and the myths of Egyptians. Similarly, and I've mentioned this in the Mithras talk, Mithras, Krishna, Dionysus, and Attis of Greece all have these same conditions of birth and resurrection of varying degrees. So this is the astrotheological understanding of this. The star in the east is Sirius. On December 25th, Sirius aligns with the belt of Orion. So they line up. And these 3 stars of the belt of Orion are known as the 3 kings, or the 3 wise men, whatever the verbiage is as it changes throughout time. Now, this is why the 3 kings follow the star in the east in order to find the sun. So when I say sun, this is an intentional pun. It is S-O-N and S-U-N, the same. Sun, sun. This is the birth of the sun. So to understand this, I'll go into it later, actually. I'll give some more context. But I want to take this time right now to talk about the star Sirius in particular. Now, the Yoruba believed that their gods, or they, originated from a planet near Sirius. The Egyptians centered their religion and the building of their certain parts of their pyramids around Sirius. The Babylonians, the Sumerians, much in the same way. The Native American tribe, the Cheyenne, have a story about a woman who married the morning star and gave birth to a star hero. The Blackfoot have many myths surrounding the morning star. It's an integral part of their mythos. In Chaldea, this star was known as the dog star, or the star that leads. In China, it was referred to as the heavenly wolf. So there's this strange thing in throughout ancient cultures of referring to Sirius by the name of a dog or a wolf. In Akkadian, it's the dog of the sun. The Siri, I think I'm not going to be able to pronounce this, but another African tribe, or actually a Southwest American indigenous tribe, refers to Sirius as the dog that follows mountain sheep, and the Cherokee referred to it as the path of the souls. So in certain ancient beliefs and or New Age beliefs, we have this concept that Sirius is a sort of gateway of the souls, that is where our alleged souls originate from, and that we come from there originally and are corporealized here on Earth. An extra note is the tribe of Nebraska, the Skeety, call it the wolf star, and the Alaskan Inuit call it the moon dog. So where do I want to go with this next? This is not just important for the natives. It's not just important for the ancient Western world. It's important for the Eastern cultures and the Polynesians in different ways. So Sirius will be found in some capacity no matter where you are in the ancient world. You will always find different stories of Sirius, whether we're going to take this as literally as these kind of ancient astronomers do, where they believe that Sirius is the home of extraterrestrials that intervened with the human race, or whether Sirius is simply a star that is anthropomorphized or talked about in ancient stories. It is always a point of importance. So to get back on track and to start talking about where I was at before, the three kings following the sun, the birth of the sun, the Virgin Mary is a representation of Virgo, which means virgin. The astrological symbol for Virgo is a kind of stylized M, which would result in Virgin Mary, or Buddha's mother being the Virgin Maya, or Attis's of Greece's mother, Myra. Virgo is often depicted as a virgin holding a basket of bread. And if we look at the Hebrew translation of the name Bethlehem, this translates to the house of bread. So where Jesus is allegedly born is in the house of bread in Bethlehem. It's not necessarily a place, it's more of a constellation. The winter solstice is the birth of the sun that has been previously viewed to be dying. So on December 22nd, 23rd, and 24th, the sun, if we're watching it, is appearing static. It's not moving. So prior to this, the sun keeps moving down and the days keep getting shorter and shorter. But on these 3 days, the sun is understood as dead because the sun appears to not move. And only after the 3 days, on the 25th, the sun moves 1 degree up, which is viewed as the birth, because now the days will start to return longer than the nights. So this is the astrotheological understanding of why so many ancient cultures have this depiction of dying, the sun dying, or Mithra or whoever dies and then is resurrected after 3 days because of the dates of December 22nd through the 25th. So something that I mentioned in the Mithra talk as well is that the sun died on the cross. They say the sun died on the cross, but the cross is an appropriated symbol of the astronomical symbol for the sun. It is a circle with a cross on the inside. And oftentimes when you see crosses in Christianity, you see that it's a circle is involved with the cross. And so this is saying that the sun died on the cross is a kind of reference to its own thing. The sun died in the sun. Now, they would celebrate this date in the ancient past, mostly in the West. We originate this date from, we don't know exactly where, but we do see this same holiday, this same holy day, practiced by the Sumerians and the Babylonians long before any Abrahamic religion comes about. So they wouldn't have celebrated fully at this point because they still have to rough out the rest of the winter, but this was their showing of promise. They wouldn't celebrate until Easter, which was the spring equinox, which is where the light officially overcomes the dark. So where days are longer than nights. Now, another trope that we need to dissect here in order to, one, understand the Bible better, and two, understand the ancient past better, is that the use of the number 12 is inexplicably, or it's just completely intertwined with the constellations. There's 12 constellations. There are 12 disciples. The sun travels with the disciples. Again, as mentioned, the cross was originally a symbol for the sun. We have 12 tribes of Israel. Jesus was in a temple at 12. We have 12 kings of Israel. We have 12 prophets. We have 12 princes of Israel. We have 12 great patriarchs. We have 12 judges of Israel. And we have 12 brothers of Joseph. In Revelations 22:2, the tree of life, which bears 12 manner of fruits, and yielded her fruit every month. This is a direct reference to astrology. 12 different fruits, one of these fruits every month. Different archetype ascribed to a different month. Jesus is referred to as the Son of God, pun intended, the light of the world, pun intended. They see the sun coming in the clouds, Mark 13:26. Then Jesus came forth wearing a crown of thorns. The crown, this is John 19:5, by the way, the crown is sun rays. You see this in depictions of gods before Jesus and after Jesus. Especially Mithra is a good one to look at, where you see the rays going out, the crown of thorns going out. Excuse me one moment. In order to understand a lot of the ancient past too, we need to speak about the precession of the equinoxes. And this is an astronomical and mathematical understanding that the ancient world had all around. So we can give all this credit to modern astronomy and so forth, but really the ancients had a very sophisticated understanding of how the cosmos or the greater solar system worked. So when we see an age represented in the Bible or in the past, an age equals 2,150 years. The great year, as it was called, the great year, was 25,772 years long. This is how long it takes for us, at our vantage point on Earth, to move through all the constellations and through all the ages to return to the spot where we were at before. So the age of Taurus is about 4,300 or 4,300 BC to 2,150 BC. This is the age of Taurus. In the cult of Mithras, Mithras is shown killing the bull, or the god of time, or basically doing the depictions that we see in contemporary bullfights in order to move humanity from the age of Taurus into the age of the ram. Gosh, I mean, this stuff is rich, folks. From 2,150 to the year 1 AD, this was the age of the ram, or Aries. Again, this is the precession of the equinoxes. So each of these time slots in human history is categorized by the archetype ascribed to that constellation. So what humanity is going through on a collective consciousness level is affected or viewed, has been historically viewed to be affected by what age we're in. So the age of Pisces is from the year 1 until 2150 AD. So a lot of people, you might have heard several times over, and this really came out in the 70s, that we have entered the age of Aquarius, or many people said that 2012 was the official cusp into the age of Aquarius. However, this isn't true. We are much closer to the age of Aquarius than we are to the age of the ram. We are definitely in the latter part of the age of Pisces, but we're not quite in full form age of Aquarius yet. So I want to get into that later. I hope I remember to do so. It's really easy to get lost in this talk because honestly, there's way too much of this, and there's no way I could cover this in an hour. This is just to kind of give the platter. So Moses comes down with his commandments, right? And he sees people worshiping a bull, and he reacts with anger. I can't remember how it says. He either tells them to kill each other or to kill themselves, because he represents the changing of the new age into the age of the ram. And they're still worshiping, or are symbolized to be worshiping, the bull, or Taurus. As I mentioned, Mithras kills the bull. So here's another tradition talking about this ancient understanding of the transition of the age. So with this association with the age of Pisces in Jesus marking this new age, we can understand why there are all these bumper stickers that have the name of Jesus inside of a fish, or why, and I've mentioned this before too, why the Pope wears a fish hat. Gosh. A quote from the Bible, we have only 5 loaves of bread, and 2 fish. They were all fed on 2 fish, a reference to Pisces representing 2 fish. I'm not going to get into this as much, but it's something I mentioned at the beginning. We have many contradictory quotes from the Bible about astrology. My quickest way to sum this up is why we find all this scripture that makes astrology into the work of heathens. I believe the simplest way to put this is because they wanted to distance themselves from the worshiping of the specific planets. They wanted to make it about one, right? The highest up. And so since astrology at this point in history was tied to the worshiping of the gods, which were the planets, embodying them, making sacrifices to them, performing rituals with their names. This is why astrology was kind of demonized by the church, yet it is also inexplicably tied to astrology and owes its scripture to astrology, but it's hidden underneath the surface. It's more of an esoteric understanding and not an exoteric understanding. So I'll give you an example of how it goes good in the Bible. Ecclesiastes 3:1-8. There is a time for everything and a season for every activity under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build, so on and so forth. A time for war, a time for peace, time to love, time to be silent. All of this is a very interesting reference to astrology because that's what it was about. As it started, it was all about omens. An early Sumerian king, Gidea of Lagash, had a dream of consulting with the gods about what was the right time to build a temple. This goes all the way into the past where they have to reference the stars as to when are good times to do things. So the Egyptians, or anybody else for that matter, would want to know if the Nile was going to flood so that they could harvest their crops ahead of time so that they wouldn't starve. This is something that I could get into much more, but we're going to move through. Genesis 1:14-15. And God said, let there be lights in the expanse of the sky to separate the day from the light, and let them serve as signs to mark seasons and days and years, and let them be lights in the expanse of the sky and give light on the earth. And so it was so. Astrologically speaking, certain signs are cardinal signs, which show the beginning of a season. Certain signs are fixed signs, which means that they are the middle of the seasons. And certain signs are mutable signs, which make them the ending of seasons. In the Bible, Jesus was asked where the next Passover will be. And in Luke 22:10, he says, behold, when ye are entered into the city, there shall be a man to meet you, bearing a pitcher of water. Follow him into the house where he entereth. So, Jesus is saying, in the next age will be Aquarius, a man who bears a pitcher of water. Follow him into the house. House is another term for constellation. Again, we need an esoteric, we need a level of understanding to see what's really going on here. We can't just read it at the surface and think that it's just overly abstract. So astrology was a foundational knowledge to the Norse, the Druids, the Babylonians, the Greeks, the Romans, the Zoroastrians, the Mithraisms, or the Mithraics, the Mayans, the Aztecs, the Native Americans, and in more subtle ways, it's involved in all Abrahamic religions, Hinduism, Taoism, and Buddhism. For instance, in Hinduism, Ganesh, it's the one that most people recognize because it's the elephant god. He represents the spirit of Jupiter. And this is translated as the Lord of Hosts. The Lord of Hosts is one of the favorite titles of Jehovah in the Old Testament. The Lord of Hosts being a direct reference, when you hear it, to Jupiter, being the big boy, or Zeus, or, the greatest of all the gods, the planets. In the modern day, and we'll back this up a bit, but in the modern day, Einstein, Isaac Newton, Carl Jung, all heavily studied astrology. It was only recently that they could come out and talk about it because it was hedonistic. It was forbidden to look into astrology. Even Jung was very tiptoey about mentioning his study of astrology, but we can see it in his understanding of different psychological personality traits, most notably sensation, intuition, feeling, and thinking are translated to earth, air, water, fire. Fire is intuition, water is sensation, feeling is air. Maybe I'm mixing these things up a bit. I haven't studied Jung enough here. But astrology of the past did eventually get roped into what is called paganism or polytheism. However, astrology has always been a technical science in its main form. So although it got caught up in what we call gods or myth, it was highly successful in acts of clairvoyance and prophecy, which philosophically we're going to have to spend some time on. It is not an art that is hidden. Anybody who wants to learn about astrology, this is around. The only times, this is just me saying that it's not an occult thing. This isn't a hidden science. This is something that was a tremendous part of human history. The only time that it has been negative or been made to be secret was under the Inquisition, which is specifically tied to Christianity, and science follows suit, but science won't go about killing people for looking into it. This is not an art which deems anybody with what some might call psychic gifts. This is something of a system. If this, then that. The earliest forms of astrology resemble the Farmer's Almanac, resemble ephemeris. This is how people know when to plant and when not to plant and what to plant. This is something that is still used and made every year. The almanac comes out every year, yet people think astrology is woo-woo. It's about what's going on all around us. So in Islamic sciences and Arabic understanding, this was always a part of their culture. It was the decree of the stars. In Sanskrit, in India, they referred to it in translation as the science of light. The Chinese would study it and would refer to it as the yin-yang way, how things move back and forth, light and dark. There are all sorts of ways that you can make this subject much deeper than I'm going. And what I mean by that is that some researchers of astrotheology believe that certain religions are ascribed to certain planets. So I'm forgetting the name right now, but he was a 33-degree Mason, Manly Hall, and he believed that Judaism was tied to Saturn, that Islam was tied to Venus, and that Christianity was tied to Mars. Maybe I'm getting that wrong. So people spin this all sorts of ways. However, as a historical understanding, what is the fact is that Jupiter is Zeus, Venus is Aphrodite, Aries is the god of war, Mars. This is simply the translation between the Greek names and the Roman names for the planets. So if you can imagine, it wasn't about Mount Olympus, really. It was that they could see the spherical bodies in the skies. They realized that these spherical bodies have an effect on the world, whether that is simply that when they're at a certain place, that means that you should plant these crops so that things go better, or to the level of, we are this way and my personality is this way because of these planets. It only turned into what we call horoscopic or decanic or personality-based astrology when it came time for the Greeks. The Greeks made astrology much more intricate and nuanced than their ancestors did. The Greek word for cosmos means world, but by the name world, it meant everything encapsulated by the eye. There's actually a place in Athens, it's a suburb of Athens, called Neos Cosmos. That means new world. It's literally named the New World, just as a side note here. The root of the word cosmetic, cosmetology, cosmetics, is translated as beautiful order, or the beautiful world, or the beauty of the world. So that's how you can tie cosmetics to the cosmos. The cause of presence, let me back this up. There's many beliefs in ancient society, especially by the Vedas in India, that the cause of present events lie in the future, or in other words, reality is a backwards causation. It is not about what happened before makes what will happen in the future. It's what will happen in the future makes what happens to us now. So, like I said, there's many ways that this reaches mind-bending proportions. The Hebrews in the Old Testament made it a very firm rule that you must perform the rituals on certain days. So you must perform the rituals of holidays on those holidays. And to not do so would be to invite divine wrath or bad luck or terrible misfortune. They and many other cultures took those days very, very, very seriously. They were sacred days, sacred, holy days. And we've really lost that root as a society as to why the holidays are holidays, why those specific days are those holidays. And the answers lie in astrology, ancient astronomy, ancient reverence of the order or the beauty of the cosmos. So, as I mentioned before, the First Nations of North America, they believed that the cosmos was a moving structure, enacted rituals designed to harmonize with this greater field of existence. So it was as if you could disobey the great function of things, and that would be to your misfortune. And much like in shamanism, which they still practiced, their ultimate goal was to honor how the stars were moving, so they would observe them. And as a last note before I go completely AWOL in my own discussions here, the Aboriginals and the Polynesians, before, you know, modern civilization reached them, they would use the stars and understood the stars as a means of navigation, from getting one island to another, to be able to travel in the night. Still to this day, and I know a guy personally, still to this day, you must have somebody on a freighter or on a ship that understands celestial navigation, that understands how to follow the stars in order to get to where you need to get, because in the off chance that their electrical or GPS systems go down, their last hope of not being utterly and completely lost is that one guy that most of the time gets just is paid to just sit there would be their only hope. So there is a root to all of these different disciplines of astrology. The natives of America had their own astrology. This was based off of animals, and this is very similar to what we see in Aztec had their own astrology, or the Mayans had their own astrology, which, if you remember, 2012 was all about this great year. You know, their big clocks ended at this point, and that's why everybody was freaking out about 2012. And that's again why they believed that it was moving to the age of Aries, or the age of Aquarius, which they thought the Mayans were calculating. So here in the Americas, they had their own. The Druids had their own, but theirs was unique because it was based off of trees and not off of animals. The Chinese, they have their own, except it's based off of years. And they include different elements, metal and wood, as opposed to the classic elements of paganism: earth, water, air, and fire. And throughout the ancient world, the astrology that we know today, Virgo, Scorpio, Sagittarius, so forth, this is all inherited from the Western tradition, which has bounced around a few different ways. The big story there is that it's a mix between what came from Mesopotamia or Sumeria, moved to Egypt in a separate order, made its own, and then moved to Europe, and eventually coalesced in the Greeks. And then when Alexandria became a thing, all these different astrologies mixed together, and that's what we inherit as the Western tradition, horoscopic zodiac. So what I want to say with this is that it's everywhere, and there must be a reason why it's everywhere. So where the natives came from, however long ago, when they crossed the land bridge of Siberia to Alaska, or however they got there, there's some other ideas. They obviously brought this with them. So the tradition of astrology must predate all civilization as we know it by our contemporary historic understanding. There are depictions in caves in France and so forth of reverence to the stars that date like 25,000 years ago. This is something that you're going to find in every religion in some form. Now, it makes perfect sense that as early humans, again, imagine that we know nothing. We have no culture. We have no even necessarily a language, or even, any of the things that we understand as of today. A car, what's that? A bookshelf, what's that? What's a book? All these things just complete no. We don't have any knowledge that the world is apparently circular. We don't have any knowledge of anything such as this, okay? Completely open slate. Now, at night, you look up and you see all of this, all these lights, these speckled lights. So what is this? Like, this is the original holiness. This is the original sacredness. This is the original fascination of pulling man's consciousness towards reverence. That there are tremendous things happening beyond. What is it? What could it be? Even the concept of us being on a planet is a little heavy-handed to talk about this early human psychology. So, and what's up with the sun? What is that thing? Why does it go away and then come back? You know? And so logically, the moon and these planets, which they started to notice were different than the stars, and all of these things would be characters to them. They're things that reoccurringly interact with their human experience. So they can't talk with them, but they can observe them, or, you know, eventually maybe they can talk with them via oracles and so forth. But the myth, all the myth and all of the ideas and all of the names come later. But the first understanding was tracking, omens, a mathematical pursuit. There's arguments that can be made that astrology was the impetus for mathematics, was the impetus for science, was the motivation for everything that eventually bloomed, agriculture. If you study as an astrologer does, then you realize that certain points of human history seem to align with certain astrological alignments. So for instance, when Saturn conjuncts with Jupiter, that is a tremendous time of change in the history of mankind. Something changes a lot. I'm not going to remember exactly what happens, but I think things like the Renaissance or revolutions. When Pluto reaches to a certain point in its 300-something year orbit, it always results in revolution, social unrest, and so forth. The last time that Pluto was at this specific point was the American Revolution, the French Revolution, and so forth. All of the revolutions that went through and essentially attempted to wipe out monarchy in the ancient world. This is now, actually, it's not here yet, but it's very soon returning. So if you feel like there's a worldly kind of social unrest, an astrologer would just be like, yeah, dude, I mean, this is a part of the clock. This is as it goes on. So, okay, as a further basis too, the understanding is that you as a person are the way that you are because of the first breath that you took when you came into this world. That first breath that you took is understood to be the codifying of that moment of history. You are that moment. The personality of what that moment felt like. Maybe it was a happy moment for some. Maybe it had all these elements. Maybe there was some interesting philosophical discussions going on. Maybe there was a world event that happened that day. What that day felt like, and specifically that microscopic, that minute moment of time where you took that breath, is your essence, is your consciousness. The consciousness of that time is you, and your personality is according to that. So that's why they study where all the stars were in order to get a gauge of who you were the moment of your birth and where you were the moment of your birth. So in this way, philosophically and historically, and if we're talking about the woo-woo end of astrology here, we're not talking about the practical side of astrology here. That means that you are a moment in time being dragged through other moments in time. You are the representation of one movement experiencing itself throughout other movements, which is a lot to deal with, I know. Now, the other thing I want to touch on too is this big discussion in the ancient world, which has taken on many forms in philosophical traditions, in religious traditions, being the debate between free will and fatalism. So fatalism is the divine plan, that everything is set. It's fate, hard-nosed fate, no changing it. Okay, that's one side. Then free will, where you are unaffected. There is nothing affecting you. You are utterly free to do everything that you could ever do, which I find very silly, because in which case, if you can do anything that you want to do, then why don't you just leap off this planet, be able to breathe air in space, become the king of the world? Well, actually, just fly around. You don't need a plane, because you can do anything you want to. You have free will. But to say the opposite, that everything is concretely, utterly decided, this has been more of the philosophy of the collective past. However, like I said, this is a great debate. Now, historically, now we're talking the history of thought here. Free will is very much a newer concept. And what I mean by that is free will was very much introduced by Christianity in a lot of ways, and was really pushed by science, much like the demonizing of astrology. So those two coincide with each other, go hand in hand. And Christianity ascribes free will in the sense that you can be a good boy and go upstairs, or you can choose to be a bad boy and go downstairs. Classic Santa Claus coal or presents situation. And this means that you have a choice. There aren't certain souls that are born certain ways. If we believe in reincarnation, then that would be to say that some people have been around so many times that they are inherently good because they've learned the many lessons of being evil. And if we understood it in this way too, people who are evil are just simply young, not old souls, but young souls who are experimenting with the limitations and the sensations and phenomena of corporeal existence. However, Christianity introduces this, which also introduces an amount of fear and guilt, which would become characteristic of our era all the way into the modern day. Whole nother topic. And science would blow the lid off that. We live in an anarchic, heartless world, which is ran by mechanistic mathematical algorithms, that gravitation is this force, and the spinning of the astral bodies is a blind force. There's nothing divine about it. And in which case we are introduced with existentialism, nihilism, and trying to find meaning in the absence of any fate or any leading towards higher purpose or greater functioning happening in the universe. Now, this is a tremendous debate. This is something that we have struggled with in the same way as we struggle with the fear of our own mortality and our finite nature. The Greeks had an understanding that the stars compel, but they do not force. So it is suggestive, and it has a tendency. So the act of fate is kind of this middle ground here.
Let me shout some of y'all out. Peace and blessings. The bomb mom is in the building. Much love, baby girl. We got the Morning Star. Been in the building talking shit. And of course, I got my baby, Prophet Absolute Warrior. Yes. It's time to blaze, my love. Time to blaze.
Where it's going a certain way, but you have the freedom to kind of form your own tributaries, or you have the freedom
I have
to
it.
go against that. But in other traditions, to go against fate is a tremendous mistake. For instance, in Hinduism and inherited by Buddhism, we have the concept of dharma, which is more or less your life purpose, your way in life, which we'll talk about this when we get to Taoism, which I've been waiting a long time to do. To negate the dharma, to refuse your way of life, to refuse what you were born into, is to invite a great havoc unto the world, to punish not only yourself, but everybody around you. If you've ever watched the series Lost, it's an old ABC.
I told y'all, I've been saying this. Every movie, every television series, everything, always got an underlying truth in it. I've always been able to see between them damn lines.
Show, it's the Dharma Initiative. Every time when they attempt to leave the island, they are going against their Dharma, and people die and things go wrong. So they always have to return and deal with their fate. This is Lost is a great allegory of the way that the Sanskrit, Hindu, Buddhists understood Dharma. So again, we have some cultures here, and still to this day, to break your Dharma is a huge taboo. There is one culture that errs on this side, that you must go with your Dharma. You must go with the fate. You have the natives, again, as I mentioned before,
real
who believe and any shamanistic, whether we're talking of the true shamans of Siberia, or we're talking about the shamans who operate in Africa, or we're talking about the shamans who do ayahuasca ceremonies down in Peru and so forth, or we're talking about the shamans sprinkled all throughout the different tribes and cultures. Their belief is always to go with the fate, to embrace the way, to embrace what the stars have to compel you. So this is why it's been a very contentious topic in the past, because the implications of this discussion have everything to do with why we approach life. The stars introduce an existential, divine, and reverential aspect to our lives. We, in the scientific understanding, they make us exponentially small. We are a scrap of dust. And in the other way, to kind of flip that script.
I was thinking about you earlier, baby girl. I started to text you, then I said no. I remember she said she was gonna start working, so I didn't bother you. I knew sooner or later you were gonna come holler at your girl.
The stars can be viewed as guides, as things that were invented by us, or invented by the God that created us as well, if you want to go there, to assist us. The Sumerians believed, and the Babylonians, by inheritance, believed that the stars were here to reveal the story of mankind, that the more we looked into it, the more we would understand why we're here, and the more that we would begin to understand and move towards our promised utopia, that the stars are a kind of code placed by the Godhead at the beginning of time for us to slowly unravel it as we become smarter and more conscious and more perceptible. We kind of crack the code, and then we're officially a utopia. We're officially reaching Christ consciousness. We're officially, breaking through the fourth wall, transcending our banal, mundane existence of uncertainty and misunderstanding. So you can see why, and I know I have to bring this to a close now, you can see why I wanted to bring up this topic in so many ways, because although it's my first talk on this spiritual studies course that isn't explicit.
He actually has a spiritual studies course on palmistry. Now, if you all want me to go ahead after this, because this is going to wind up, Prophet, no. My platform is for the people, it's for the consciousness, the collective consciousness. I'm here to raise the vibrations and open up these people's eyes to the truth. Because what? The truth will make you free. Hashay.
One religion. This is a discussion that speaks to all religions. Right. All religions variate in this discussion of how to understand the stars, whether it's serious or whether it's just about our planets, or mentioning the constellations or the luminaries, whatever they're called in whatever traditions and however they're understood. They always play a part, and there's a reason for that. There is an inherited culture here that we don't know about. I mean, it goes beyond Proto-Indo-European. We're talking, I mean, if you're an Atlantean sort of subscriber, we're talking about that level of history, or we're talking about some sort of divine understanding.
This is Atlantis. But look at when Columbus so-called discovered the Americas, man, we were already here. And he know that too. I did a session on the Aboriginals of Australia yesterday. The Aboriginals in Australia have been there for over 100,000 years. Okay? 100,000 years. Come on, man. We can't make this damn shit up, people.
Or inherited tradition that comes all the way from our primitive era. Gosh, man. There's so much unknown to be had here, but one thing I want to make very, very clear is that Vogue magazine is not okay. It is not an accurate representation of what astrology is. For people to point to the shysters who create overly generalized, confirmation biased, oriented horoscopes are simply doing it for viewership. They are shysters. There are good astrologers in the modern day. There are people who have held the craft throughout all this time of historical repression. You should take them seriously. You should hear them out. There is a lot of technicality that goes into the understandings of astrology. You have trines, you have squares, you have conjuncts, you have sextiles, you have quintiles, you have conjunctions, you have you have the houses rotations. Yep. You have the natal charts. Yep. You have the calculations of the cusps. I mean, so on and so forth.
Same thing I've been talking about, Prophet. What I've been talking about, the houses and that. Y'all already know this right down my alley. I already told y'all I am an enigma. Capricorn Sun, Taurus Moon, Leo Rising, Sagittarius, Venus and Neptune conjunction, Scorpio, North Node and Uranus, Grand Trine and Air and Fire, Aries, Lilith, Jupiter, Cryon and MC. Powerful being, baby. A powerful being. I am.
The outer planets, the inner planets, the different embodiments. There is so much to be unveiled. And we stand generally as a culture blind to this nuance that we once knew very collectively and that we accepted completely. So I hope this can kind of break some of those taboos, reinvent that fascination that we were born with as a human society, and I guess kind of learn it some more so that we can accurately understand the traditions that we've been inheriting in their full purpose and impact. Okay,
I'm at the end now, baby girl. This is my third session here. I might come back on a little later on. I don't know, it depends. But I got something I need to ask y'all a question while y'all in here. Because CG, this guy that's lecturing, the one that does, he has a channel here, the one that does all of these. He reached out to me because I had asked him before I even started doing his lectures, and he told me it was fine. I showed the message to Prophet and them yesterday, and he been checking me out. He said he been dropping in on me. He said, I've been seeing how you've been diving through the course and sharing it with others. Much love. He said, do you or others have any favorites? Also, I'm always open to suggestions for future topics. So does anyone have any suggestions for future topics? Are there any favorite courses would y'all like him to dive a little deeper into? Just let me know and I'll let him know. Ashe? Yeah, I told y'all I don't lie, baby. I tell the truth because I am the truth. Nothing but the truth. See? And what's the reason lying? You got, like I said, you got to lie. Like, yeah, back in the days when I was, hey, in them streets, oh yeah, I tell a lie quick to get what I wanted. But once your eyes open up and you start living, try to live at least halfway right. You do good, you get good. Because what go around, come around. Like I always say, you reap what you sow. Simple as that. If you plant it, look, you tend to that garden, you get a good garden, right? But if you start throwing all that old trash and shit in it, what's gonna happen? It's gonna go to the bad, right? Yeah, so therefore you tell a lie, you got to cover up that lie with a lie, then you got to cover that lie with another lie. After a while, you don't forgot what the hell you said, shit. So what's the use of lying? Just go ahead and be truthful from the beginning, see? That way you ain't got to worry about what you said. Now, y'all got any suggestions on any topics y'all wanna listen to or anything? The Aries, woman, Scorpio, man dynamic. Let me write that down. Look, I know as soon as I get ready to start ending up this thing, somebody gonna try to. I'm on a live stream. What's up, boy? I'll call you back in a minute. See what I'm talking about? It don't never fail. But I did pretty good though today. That was like really the first phone call I don't had since I doing this. You said the Aries man and the Scorpio man dynamics. Write that down. And but guess what? The bomb mom. Ironically, CG is an Aries. April the 2nd. He said, because I asked him when his birthday was, he said April the 2nd, he was almost a fool. I said, you might be the fool. Oh boy. Yeah, because he's really heavy into divination and everything. Y'all go over there and check his channel out, Subscribe to him, show my guy some love, you know what I'm saying? But he's glad, he said he's glad that I'm helping him get this message out because he's always open. He's a really friendly guy. You April the 9th? Let's see, wait a minute, movie here. Aries woman, Scorpio man. Okay. Scorpio man. All right. I kind of got my eyes on the Scorpio too. Yes, sir. The so-called prophets is let's see what we got here. Who what? The so-called prophets is and should be a prop that is fit. Get it? Prophet, you a damn trip. Yeah, I get it. It's supposed to be fit like you, right, Prophet? A prophet like Prophet Levi. Let's go. Prophet, you a damn trip. You know that. 23, 53, 61 North, 149 West. What that's supposed to be? 23. Is that a code or something? 23, 53, 61 North. 149 West. You don't gave me a code I got to crack now, huh? What we got going on here? Yes, there's some good lovers now. We Capricorn some freaks too now. You better believe that shit. Once you have a Capricorn, you don't want nobody else. I already know you. Aries is the in tarot is the emperor. Y'all represent the emperor. Aries energy. But I got big Aries energy too, see. See, a lot of people, I told y'all we are more than our sun sign. I keep telling y'all that y'all got to get your data. Well, the bomb mom, she know about it, but y'all need to get your data chart. Go right on there to Cafe Astrology, Astro Cafe. Put in your birthday, your time of birth, and all that stuff where you were born at. Boom, you got it right there. They give you all your signs and your chart and everything. You already know I don't show y'all mine. I got mine. I got everything, all the aspects. I got it all broke down. I got my houses, my houses in my chart and everything. I'm still learning my houses, The main two I really focus on are my third and my ninth house. Because the ninth house deals with my purpose as well as your North Node, and it all ties in with spirituality and raising the consciousness. So I'm a Pisces in the ninth house, part of fortune, see? And your part of fortune is what your fortune should be in this lifetime. See, that's what I'm saying? Y'all need to study all that shit. See what we at here. All that equals 6. You be on it, don't you, Prophet? In sidereal, I'm a Sagittarius sun in sidereal. I watched that sidereal one time. I just really wasn't into it like that. But a lot of people say that sidereal is more accurate. Maybe why a lot of times I resonate more with Sagittarius reading. But I have Venus and Neptune conjunction in Sagittarius. So they always tell you to watch your sun, moon, rising, Venus, and North Node signs, see? But I really think it's imperative to watch really any sign that you have highly aspected in your chart. Because Libra, I'm a Libra, I have Pluto in Libra. That resonates highly with me. Mercury in Aquarius. And, Mercury rules like communication and everything. Then I have Gemini Mars. That's really, because that's what a lot of people have been talking about here lately, is this Gemini Mars. I have Mars and Gemini. Closer astronomical. I guess the reason is that because I've always, everybody born over here in the United States, we were raised on tropical. So I guess that's why we're more into tropical. Because I asked a lot of people, a lot of people really not into that sidereal. But like I say, I have, checked it out once or twice, but I just want to stick to the tropical of astrology. Let's see what this is. All I so-called what signs is in the eye, the avatar body. See, see what we got here. Saturn. I got Saturn in my rise. I got Leo rising and Saturn. Saturn is also in Leo in my astrology chart. Subsea Saturn, Jupiter, Sun, Pluto, Moon, Mercury are all in Virgo. Venus in Leo, Cancer rising, Mars, Uranus, Neptune, and Scorpio. Wow. North Node in Cancer, South in Cancer. Yep. It's always the opposite. Yeah, because by me being a North Node in Scorpio, that made me a South Node Taurus. Yeah, people, yeah, that's why I tell you, I need to go and get y'all chart. But that Jupiter, see, all just like what Morning Star got up there, y'all, those planets in it, those transitions, they all play a major part in your life. Through these cycles and these moon phases and everything, you got to watch all that shit. That's why lunatic, like I say, lunar, the moon, why they always say people act crazy during these certain full moons and these moon phases and all that stuff. How can the moon controls the tides and all that stuff? The moon controls a lot, just like we women. You notice that it controls our cycle, especially when you were around a lot of women. I done been in prison. Y'all know I ain't never had that. I've been in prison. All us used to seem like everybody's cycle used to line up at the same time. Everybody be on their damn cycle at one damn time. You see what I'm saying? Oh, that's crazy, ain't it? Even he was talking about earlier today when I played podcast, one of his lectures, when he was talking about psychology, astrology, theology, and all that shit. Say tropical is trash. So you follow the sidereal, huh? Well, everybody to each his own, you know what I'm saying? 3 women in my house. I know that's crazy. Say not up in the sky, it's in the body. Temple, let's get it. No, because we travel through the planet. We travel through the planets. You know what I'm saying? The soul travels through the planets and all that. This thing is deep, man, real deep. We just skimming the surface. Use astrological and astronomy sites. Okay. Yeah, I had see. That's why a lot of times when I broadcast things, It's based on things that I believe in. I'm not trying to persuade anyone, into what people believe, what they believe. I'm just putting the information out there, and it's up to you to, to digest it or not. That's what I'm doing, because that's my purpose. I mean, my North Node, that's my purpose. Well, astrology, morning star. Let me see. I don't know if I read this to you or not. Let me get it here. What your North Node represents. Well, see, each sign is different, and every sign represents something different. And see, by my North Node, let me get it here. See that all them damn pages there? I had went and got me a damn binder to put them in. See right here. And I'm telling you that everything, when I started getting into this, I realized that every damn thing that went on through my life was already written. It was there. I was like, wow, this shit is just crazy as hell. Yeah, that's me. Look here, let me tell you something. I see shit all the time. Sometimes I think I do be going crazy. I be seeing shit. I be seeing little vapors, like a whisper of vapor, like out the corner of my eye. I can feel things, It's like sometimes I can see it be like a vibration. Seems like I can see like something in the just in the air, just like a vibration, like waves or something. I'm serious. Sometimes I can see like little black shadows, all that shit. So you more into palmistry? You like palmistry a lot? I might do I might broadcast that palmistry session tomorrow. I don't know if I'm coming back on tonight. It just depends. I always say I'm not coming back on, but the family can tell you. I say I'm not coming back on, the next thing you know, I'll be on here. It just depends. Whenever that spirit come through, whenever that spirit give me that download. Let's see what we got going on here. It's just too much. I'm still really like studying this. I mean, there's a lot to digest. Since everything, like I said, conjunctions are really the strongest. Are really the strongest things in your chart. You got your aspects and your sextiles, but the conjunctions are really the strong points. After hitting him twice, he left. Oh, you hit him twice? You tripping. You a mess. You know that. Where you at here? You tripping. But Mom, you tripping too, huh? Y'all a mess in here today. See, I like when I have people in here that I can trip off of. You know what I'm saying? I don't like just being in here talking to the damn roaches, as they say. The goddamn building be echoing and shit. Hey, Morning Star. What about coffee cup readings and tea leaf readings and stuff like that? You like stuff like that? Now, if I wasn't trying to find it, I would have found it. What happened to your dad? You and your dad must didn't get along. Okay, here we go. North Node symbolism. Qualities one is learning to embody in this life. Life lessons. South Node, the opposite point in the chart, are the qualities that come natural to us. Like Taurus is my South Node. That's what comes natural to me, that ego, that shadow side, that lower self. See what I'm saying? You're supposed to be moving away from that to your North Node and to your purpose. The North Node represents the qualities one is learning to embody in this life, finding a capacity to be emotionally aware and open, finding a capacity to engage in genuine intimacy, following self-directed path, true to your passions, displaying emotional honesty. You fear failure, and thus taking initiative isn't easy for you. You desire the healing experience of walking your own unique path, but the first step is finding your courage in order to overcome your feelings of inadequacy. So it says here, Scorpio symbolism, death, emotionally embodied, meaning and significance, embracing the mystery and enigma, sharp perceptive. And seeing that Uranus, that Uranus is we people who have Uranus and Scorpio, we supposed to transform the world. We don't we don't go alone to get along, basically. See what I'm saying? We here to challenge the status quo. That's what we here to do. See where we're going. Oh, you did? They pissed you off? You, hey, what's up, brother Kenneth? Everybody want to show up now that it's time for me to go. How you been doing, my love? Long time no see you. Peace and blessings. Y'all gonna make me go ahead and put something else on. What y'all want to hear? You want me to go ahead and put that palmistry session on since y'all want to come in here? I might as well. They ain't doing nothing else. Let me go. I gotta have to go to his channel here and grab it up. That palmistry session. I just had looked at it too. Oh, you came to like and share? All right. Thank you for dropping in, baby boy. Let's see. Where is it? Palmistry. Oh, this was good one here. What y'all think about the cow and bull worship? Y'all know what the age. Y'all know what the age is. What in the Bible when Moses came out of the mountain and threw the tablets, to destroy the golden bull, the golden calf. Y'all know that was the age of Taurus, right? See where we at here. I'm trying to find it. I just saw it too. There it is. You said let's go? Okay, we got you, boo.
Initially, this word divination in Latin meant prediction.
We're gonna get it. We're gonna get it. We're gonna let it do what it do.
Before this, divinus simply means of God. We see this in Sanskrit too. Devas, or Deus, or Theos, meaning God, as it still is pronounced in Latin. Yeah. And this, of course, goes back to the Proto-Indo-European, meaning to shine. So this all is rooted in the divine, inspiration of the divine. It's only later that this word is associated with prophecy, futures. So in this way, we have to understand immediately that any negative connotations with divination isn't in the root of the word, but is what has been done with the word. That's right. So that's an important one. So in order to better understand how the ancients understood divination, I've hand-selected different forms of divination that are both very exotic to us and very relatable to us in strange ways. So all of them generally end with the word mansi. So we'll see this as we...
You scream, I scream, we all scream for ice cream.
But we start with eromancy, air mancy, the craft of air, or divination through interpreting atmospheric conditions. So we could be interpreting shooting stars. We could be interpreting thunder and lightning. We could be interpreting wind or the shapes of clouds. This, in a strange way, is like modern meteorology, the study of weather. So what does the weather look like now? Say about what the weather will be like. So in this way, it's much more mundane seeming than we might assume of a word like divination. But maybe, I can't remember, maybe it was Constantine on the battles seeing a cross in the sky, and this being interpreted as a sign from God that they should continue in the battle. This was aeromancy. This is divination. Or again, we could be more mundane with it. I see that the clouds are turning darker. That particular hue of darker indicates lightning. God, show me a sign. And then meteor showers begin, right? Seemingly mundane. So that's one
Morning Star,
more classical
you don't
example. So this one's kind of funny because it's called eluromancy.
Okay, I see you, boo.
But this type of divination is messages written on paper and inserted into dough. Now, this might sound strange, but this is fortune cookies. This is a type of divination.
Oh, okay. Born in Alaska. Wow.
The chances of you receiving that particular message on that particular day might just line up in a way that actually makes something very significant to you.
Interesting.
Now, this is mostly a seeming gag, for most people. It's kind of cliche, but this is, whether it's dry and dull or not, this is a divination. Now, a big one, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but astrology. Astrology and astronomy, by definition, are acts of divination. You have the cycles of how the planets move, and you know where they will be at certain times. And this is the Farmer's Almanac. This is taboo,
in Chinese astrology, I'm the dragon. That's my zodiac sign in the Chinese zodiac, the dragon.
Accept this. Farmers depend on this. They always have. So it could lead to a big discussion on what astrology is, but even just noting astronomy and people accepting that as a science, that is
wow.
It's divination.
You deep into it.
If you're tracking the trajectory of a comet, or tracking the trajectory of where a planet is moving and how moons orbit, where it will be when, knowing that the eclipse is coming ahead of time, this, by definition, by fortune or by future telling, is, and of the heavens, right, by its etymology, this is divination. Another taboo that people just accept and they don't associate with some magical type of divination is gematria. And this is the Hebrew numerology. It's the decoding of the Bible in the means of numbers. This is something that is religiously acceptable and notable and respectable. Quite seemingly ingenious as well. And this is not viewed as demonic or anything like that. And in the same way, by extension, numerology. Somebody notices that they like a certain number for some reason. Some people are attracted to even numbers. Some people are attracted to odd numbers. Some people are attracted to very specific numbers, or they realize that they've seeing the same number over and over and over again, it always presents itself to them in strange ways. This is numerology. This is a sign. And see, this is the theme I'm trying to establish. It's as if it's saying something to you. Okay, so what is it saying? This is divination. So, you know, there's a lot to look into numerology. Depending on how deep you want to go, you can judge how much integrity is in that craft. But there's definitely a lot. You can dissect names. You can dissect codes. You can dissect how many letters you have in each of your names. That's a wormhole to go through. So a big one that bleeds more into a topic that's going to come up in the future, ESP, but is technically divination, is all forms of clairsentience. So the one that people know is clairvoyance, and this is having visions of being able to see the future, that you get a flash from the future. This is clairvoyance. Clairsentience is just any form of paranormal sensing. So in this way, you can have clairaudience, which is by modern society recorded very sufficiently in like schizophrenics. But if you heard like the voice of God or something told you to not go there, you know, this would be, maybe that this clairaudience doesn't happen all the time, but maybe you have a profound experience in life that your sign, your extra normal experience took the form of this word, clairaudience. You also have precognition, which is literally kind of like, it's basically like clairvoyance, where you can see the future play itself out in the past while you're living it. Or you have psychometry, which is being able to feel an object and perform divination through the object. You see this in a lot of TV shows where there is a psychic attempting to solve a crime. They have to like touch the knife or something like that, or they touch the necklace of somebody and they know a bunch of information about them. All of these are worthy of, you know, a lot more discussion. But this is just to say that even simple things such as hearing, seeing, and touching are different forms of divination. If you receive information that is outside of the mundane stimulus that you should be receiving, that you feel something or see something or hear something that's more significant and inexplicable, this is a form of divination by extension of its definition. So moving on, another kind of funny one is cyclomancy, and this is divination through interpreting the spinning of the bottle. It used to be more like of turning the wheel, you know, and seeing where it lands, but kind of like a roulette situation. But yeah, this spinning of the bottle.
So, Lucky Charms, I said I had to make a phone call. You said you couldn't hear me over the white guy. So what do you consider yourself? I call you Lucky Charms because you say you're Irish and Eskimo and you're a high 57, I reckon, huh? You got a little bit of this and a little bit of that. No, I said I had to make a phone call. I said I might not be interacting with y'all, but I'm still listening. But I'm here in the house doing a few things, but I'm still here. That's what I was saying, baby boy.
Before it got turned into an excuse, you know, for teenagers to whatever, right? Was a tool for making decisions, of discerning directions, of you know, putting the universe in a situation to give you a response. So that one's kind of seemingly silly, but yet again, it could be a form of divination. Now, one that isn't immediately assumable is futurology. And this is an academic discipline. I mean, there are people that meet together as a type of think tank and individuals that that their positions and their study is to notice the trends of what is currently happening in order to make educated guesses as to the future. And yet again, this is technically divination. They are using things, they're using a type of thinking, a type of rationale, in order to discern what will come. Divination. Another fascinating one, in my mind, is geomancy. So this is divination by interpreting the lines and figures traced in the earth, either by reading or feeling out the vibes of pebbles or sand or dirt to interpret these things in order to discern the future or things that have happened. So Earth's natural formations. This might sound kind of obscure, but this is geology. Literally geology. So if you knew, and mind you, I'm completely aware that they use this type of divination more minutely to be able to look at the shapes of specific stones in order to gain a lot of understanding. That's one thing, sure, but also to have a relationship with the land as a geologist does, or somebody who is much more integrated with the earth. And in order to understand how the history has played out, and how old this basalt is, how long ago the sandstone's been here, all these things would give you indications of what is in the future to come still. We might associate this with a more scientific mind, but yet again, we are using a means to predict the future. So geomancy. We also have another thing that is surprisingly more accepted than people would think, and this is graphology. And yet again, this is a type of divination, deriving information from the form of somebody's handwriting. They use this in forensics for a few reasons. They use it to be able to discern somebody's attitude by their handwriting, what characteristics they have to help them establish motives and to further the case. And of course, they use it to match people's identities, to make sure that forgeries aren't happening. But this handwriting, there's a tremendous amount of old literature that would be able to tell you of rudimentary characteristics of an individual based on the form of their handwriting. This was a very common understanding. It's not foo-foo, it's not superstitious. This is just something that's become more niche as time has gone on. It was a little bit more ubiquitous in the past, but now it seems like a real novelty in that really only those very specific forensics people are familiar with it. But there's a lot that you can discern, a lot of information that you can tell about somebody's past and future and their present attitude, philosophies, desires, yearnings, from their handwriting alone. Now, when I speak of divination, the part that kind of freaks people out is more along the lines of what I'm going to talk about now. So it's ichthyomancy. It's called ichthyomancy, which is divination based off the entrails of fish. And there's a lot of these really obscure seeming types of divination that people of the more rational minds cackle at when it comes to the past. But yeah, this was a form of divination in the past. There was allegedly a lot to be able to discern from the specific spill out of fish entrails. That might seem absurd to us, but we don't know the cultural context here. We don't know exactly what the rationale was. And then any of these would seem just as absurd to them that we think is reasonable as we think this method is. So, mind your cultural relativism here. The other one that is much more familiar and is obscure, that generally gives people the bad association of divination, is necromancy. Of course, necromancy, necro meaning dead. And this is not conjuring the dead to come back to life. This is communication with the dead in order to learn things of the past, the present, the future. This was something that was obviously taken up in the spiritualist movement significantly. But as I've noted in previous talks before, this is something that has been tied to shamanism since before any religions have ever propagated on the earth. This is not something as strange as what people might assume, based off of history, not based off of the taboos as they've been passed down by years and years and years of European Catholicism and indoctrinating everybody's ways of thinking. So, again, check your privilege there. I'm not saying that that's something that everybody should do, but I'm just saying we should be mindful of our reactions. But yes, that is a very notable form of divination that spanned many cultures in the past. I'm not going to try to pronunciate this one, but essentially it's the divination of the umbilical cord. When someone came out, when you're born, you could be judged, or your future could be judged, what sort of fate you had based off of the shape of your belly button, based off of if there were knots in your umbilical cord, based off the shape of the umbilical cord itself, any blemishes or the color of it. It could determine how many children a woman would have in her lifetime. There were information that you could garner from something that seems so, again, mundane. That's another forgotten divination. Another one that we really don't think of is in the past, there was the divination of dreams. These are visions. We call it dream interpretation now, and there's a whole kind of field that's on the outer edge of psychology, popularized by Jung. But divination is completely possible within your dreams. There was this kind of belief that you could have, and still to this day somewhat, that you could have a vision of the future, that you could get hints of what was to come, or you could prevent it. Again, this is not something that you choose, in which a lot of these you're attempting to gain knowledge through whatever actions you're doing, spinning the bottle. But in this case, this is a type of divination or sign from the, extraordinary end of reality, telling you of something. So interesting, interesting one. And I've got just 3 more, and I want to spend a little bit of time on this, but it's called dowsing or divining or water witching. And this one has been really negatively done over time. This is a very common practice. They also have a few other words for it: water finding, water witching, water dowsing, doodle bugging. This, you would most of the time use it to look for water, but it was later appropriated to look for oil. Now, what I want to say about this is 2 things. The general shape of this would be that they're using a Y-shaped twig or rod, or that they would use an L-shaped twig or rod, and that they would kind of use this. They would call it a vining rod or a witching rod, and they would use this as a means to feel out. They would use no other equipment. They would use this as a means to feel out where the water was underground and where you could dig a well. And so this might seem silly, and many people would call this a tremendous pseudoscience that only worked out of sheer luck, just by the fact that there was so much water around that they would just so happen to point out where it is. Now, the story that I want to say is out in the Pacific Northwest, of which I live, and this is a reference point. I live in this place called Kashmir. And one of my neighbors, one of the old souls that have been here for a long time, they were having a real hard time finding their first water supplies here. They wanted to build a house a bit further off the beaten trail. And for the life of them, they were hiring contractors and contractors and contractors to strike water underneath this property so that they could have their own system. And they wasted, they said, just over $100,000 trying to get these contractors, these sciencey types, to find it, and they were utterly failing. And this is actually the first time I ever heard of a witcher or water witching. And he told me that he finally relented. And, as a last-ditch effort, he was like, okay, I'm going to try the witcher. And this witcher had been local, and he had quite the reputation among people for doing exactly that, finding water where there seemed to be none. And of course, as you might expect, he hires him, comes up, and he finds it first try, and everything's resolved. And he said, I don't know why I didn't go with him to begin with. So don't knock it till you try it. Honestly. That's a personal testimony that's been passed to me. All right, two more. Very notable is zoomancy, and this is what we call totems, and I mentioned it, I think, last session. The divination through what animals present themselves to you and or how they behave. So all animals have totems. If there's an animal that you've never really seen, and here's the difference. You might see a lot of animals. You might see a lot of birds. You might see a lot of weasels. You might see a lot of rats. But here's the thing. If the animal presents itself to you in a way that's very notable, in a way that captures your eye, in a way that seems intentful, somebody might just call this a sign from God. But this is what we're talking about. This is divination. You're getting a sign of something that seems extraordinary, that's seeming to say something to you, that's seeming to give you more information than the mundane fact of seeing an animal. So every animal carries its own messages. One time when I was driving in Idaho, all of a sudden, never had seen one before, but a gray, bluish fox presented itself to me in the road. It didn't just walk by, it literally stretched itself out to me in a very notable fashion. And I took this seriously. So for some people, it's very, it could be an owl, it could be a coyote, it could be a moose. So it's just another way of being mindful of what messages might be being brought to you, especially if you believe in God or anything above the like anything that's involving the collective consciousness. So the last one I want to mention is scrying, and this takes many forms. So this one is what people would recognize if they watch like old witchy movies and series. You've got scrying through water. You've got smoke scrying. You've got mirror scrying. People using mirrors for discerning the future or gaining visions or so forth. The one that people know best is the crystal ball. This is also scrying. Look into my crystal ball. You can also use a utensil that dangles from your finger that points in certain directions, either clockwise or counterclockwise for yes and for no. So this is one of the most various forms of divination. And again, it's just a way of testing what wants to be seen and what's willing to show itself to you as a conversation between you and the collective consciousness, or whatever you want to call it. So we're officially done with me giving this kind of smorgasbord explanation of what divination is. And I think all of that is worth it, because now we can look at divination and mind you, this is just a snippet. There's so many more types, but this gives us the feeling of the true breadth of what divination is. Yes, some of it seems occult, some of it seems very unrelatable, but also a lot of divination is ingrained into our culture. We just don't call it divination, even though it is. So now we are going to start talking about palmistry as a focus point of a type of divination. So palmistry is a lot older than people might interpret. You've got, and I think this is the form of where it starts to where, well, okay, anyway, you find it in India, Nepal, you find it in Tibet, you find it in Persia, you found it in Sumeria, you found it in Babylon, you found it in ancient Israel, and you find it in China. This is a fairly well spread phenomena that transcends different cultures. You have prehistoric paintings of just hands.
You know, I just thought about it when I was little, when I was growing up. See, I grew up with my cousins, and well, I grew up with my nieces and my nephews and everything. And you know, I guess you could say we was doing a form of palmistry when we used to read the lines in our hands. We thought it was just a game, really. We did it as a game. You know, we would read the lines in our hands saying when we get married and this and that and going on. I told you it's been in our face all our life.
People's hands, this fascination with hands. And it would seem that since the very inception of man, of what we're told of man's history, there's been this fascination with the hand in artistic renderings. You have archaeological discoveries of hands made of ivory, hands made of wood, hands made of stones, in all different forms of both named and unnamed civilizations, ancient civilizations. You have this case of 3000 BC, so what, 5,000 years ago, where the emperor of China was sealing documents with his thumbprints, you know, putting ink on his thumbprints. You have you know, all these different historical figures that you wouldn't imagine that studied palmistry or participated with palmistry or divination discerned through the hands. They call it chiromancy, by the way. But you had Aristotle write a treatise on palmistry. You had a kind of dedication to Hermes, which is this inscription on stone that was this big old writing of palmistry. You have you know, Julius Caesar judging all of his men and selecting his men by use of palmistry. This seems to go back to Hindu astrology, and yes, when you're talking about real deep knit palmistry, it is tied to astrology. We'll get more to that later. When you're talking about in China, it has a lot to do with the history of the I Ching, which is a tremendous topic. I'll probably go over that one day. But what is most popular and what people think about palmistry is the Romanian fortune tellers. And this is the story of the gypsies. And this is a very rough story, but essentially that they were a type of people originally home in India, and that where they're living in India, they were so good at their future telling of showing people their true characteristics that they got kicked out by the bourgeoisie because they wouldn't tell them what they wanted to hear. They would only tell them the truth. And they didn't like this. So they got kicked out and they had to migrate as a people. And they moved to Egypt, eventually making their way to Egypt. And the same sort of thing happened. They were so good at this particular craft that they had formed as a tradition that the rulers kicked them out. And so they moved again, you know, they moved again, and eventually they would become what we call Romanian. And this ascribes to the kind of stereotype of the wandering gypsy, the transient gypsy. And this wasn't chosen per se. This is something that has been historically imbibed into the culture. And that's not to say that they're all like that. It's not to say that none of them are like that. But That's the general story. So at the very least, we have several thousand years of history of palmistry. This goes way, 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 way back to an undiscernible point of the past. We don't know exactly where it begins, but we have plenty of ancient records by the Hindus in India. And we see it all across Europe, and we see it all across Asia. So very, very notable. In Greece, as you know, popular names go, Anaxagoras, who's a pre-Socratic philosopher, that's the name that practiced it. You got Aristotle, I think I mentioned. You also had Alexander the Great. You know, he had great interest in discerning his officers by analyzing the lines on their hands. So again, very integrated into the past across the board. Now, just like in our witch talk, you can already guess how this goes. So in the Middle Ages, the Catholic Church comes to power, and they consider palmistry a pagan superstition. And this was classified as one of the 7 forbidden arts. The forbidden arts would be hunted down by the Inquisition, by all the claims of heresy. If you want to know more about this time period in the past, just go to my talk on the burning times. But for our purposes, the 7 forbidden arts is, you know, palmistry, geomancy, which we mentioned, you know, aeromancy, which we mentioned, pyromancy, which is discerning fire, hydromancy, which is water, and then, you know, spatulamancy, which is divination through bones, which is not one I mentioned, but it's another one that kind of freaks people out. You know, most commonly shoulder bones is used as a form of divination. So all of palmistry, these other forms of divination, and a lot of forms of the ancient past, including astrology, but we're not talking about that right now, all were forced underground by the Catholic Church, discerning all of this as devil worshiping. And without getting too far into why this happens and the philosophy of why this happened, suffice it just to say that anything that potentially would lead one to the old traditions, no matter how seemingly innocuous, no matter how seemingly innocent, had to be done away with to maintain the power of the church. Not the truth of what Christianity is, but the power of the church. And they needed any reasons that they could find to vindicate people and to show an example to keep other people in line. So don't, as a practitioner of palmistry or say like tarot, when you see Christians that shy away from this, calling this demonic, it is nothing more than propaganda that has been passed down for hundreds of years. There are no grounds tying it to the demonic. That's nonsense. If they actually knew the arts of this tradition of our human history, then they would know better than to say such things. Okay, rant is over. These people were killed for knowing these things, for practicing these things, until you had other names that kind of brought it back after the church kind of dissolved in its power. Paracelsus was a big one. Fluid was another big one. This guy, Dr. Karl Karras, has another big one. He was a physician in the 19th century that would use palms in his you know, basically is doctoring. Advances and studies in palmistry would be are indications of genetics, psychology.
Religion is a political tool. That's what it was for. It was written for an agenda. Because if you really, and you know, I always did think about that. Okay, everything that they did in the name of Christianity, the Inquisitions and all that shit, all they did was kill and murder people in the name of Christianity. Ain't that some shit? And that selling witch trial shit, that was a bunch of bullshit. They were spiritual. They believed in spirituality like we did. They worship, the stars, and they believed in all these things that we believe in. And really, It was really about the women, to tell you the truth. They was trying to kill. He did a lecture on them, on that. They wanted to kill up all the women. That's what they wanted this to be. A whole bunch of men. What they was, a bunch of homosexuals or something. Made me really think, getting some deep thought then. So therefore, they could. I guess they couldn't murder all those women. So then they had to basically make us submissive. You know what I'm saying? Make the man dominant over the woman in the Bible. Come on.
And of course, they use it in forensics. This continues into the modern age. We just don't call it palm reading. It's kind of relegated to other things that are viewed as acceptable by the general culture. But as soon as 1901, Scotland is the one that started the technique of fingerprinting for criminal identification. Again, hands. What's up with hands? Hands as the way to identify somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Medical researchers, as I sort of mentioned, found that skin patterns correspond with genetic abnormalities, unusual markings on the hands. Research has found that certain fingerprint patterns indicate heart disease. These things are scientifically provable. These things are empirically true. Okay, so if you think pseudoscience, again, recontextualize. So professional palmists can be found all around the world. The negative thing here is that we not only have the propaganda and the fear mongering that moved from the Inquisition and searching for heretics of the 600 years ago, but we also have the negative associations with what people did during the spiritualist movement when they tried to exploit people for money, using spiritual things or things that are perceived as spiritual to pull the wool over people's eyes in order to exploit them for money. This is unfortunate because it undermines the credibility of what is actually an art form and what is actually something that you can discern a lot of knowledge from. So this has been something.
If you notice, like you said, things that you can learn knowledge from. See, anything that will teach us who we really were, give us more insight, the knowledge of what was really going on, the esoteric, what I be telling you, the S-O-E-O, the E-S-O, not the X-O, what Christianity tell you, see? But the real meaning in between the lines. See what I'm talking about? Everything that exposed the so-called Holy Roman Catholic Church, they demonized it. Called it what? Heresy, devil worshiping, all that bullshit. Just like y'all say, it's a bunch of bullshit. Point blank, period. Just motherfucking period.
Who's been unfairly given a bad reputation. So I'm going to spend the rest of the time here giving you a kind of practitioner's understanding of what palmistry is and what it isn't. Okay? So we have to start first with that discussion of the fascination of human hands in cave paintings.
Don't worry about it, love.
The hands are uniquely human. Our ability to articulate with them is what makes us codified as human, because the only other thing that has the opposable thumbs are certain forms of monkeys, right?
Over 2 hours.
So the ability to articulate and to use the particular nature of the hands to craft is what has given us the ability to use tools, is what has given us the ability to make things, to craft, and civilization as a result. You know, I think of 2001: Space Odyssey. You know, it starts with the monkey using the bone.
It's not. I'm gonna finish this up tomorrow because I need to make a run myself to the stove before it start raining, before it get too late, because it's already at the 6 o'clock here. But and I don't really go out at night. I be in the house. I ain't with all that bull. There's too much be going on. But I think it's really those high up, because see, you got to look. See, they want to blame all the Freemasons, but it's like it ain't everybody there. You got to go over there and look to England, where the home base is. See, because all the rest of the Freemason stuff have to answer to them. All the laws and everything come from England. But see, it's them bourgeoisie. You know what I'm saying? They're the ones run everything. The Rothschilds, you know, the Morgans and the Rockefellers. They the ones sitting behind the scenes pulling the strings. Before we even elect the president, they already been picked out. You better believe that shit. And every president have their own psychic. They consult psychics and all that, and mediums and stuff. And Ronald Reagan, Nancy Reagan damn sure didn't let Ronald Reagan go no damn well without consulting they damn medium and psychic and shit. But I'm glad y'all enjoy this. I'm glad y'all enjoyed it. Oh yeah. But see, they ain't nothing. But see, they put a bad name really on the craft. See what I'm saying? Because they all in it for the money, for fame and fortune, prestige and shit like that. Because really, Freemasonry was really based on everything that we talk about, on astrology, geometry, philosophy, all of that stuff. But they strayed away from the true meaning of it. They try to do, they use that power, like you say, they use their power because they know, they're powerful, but they use that power to control things. See, and it, like they say, one bad apple spoiled the barrel. Thank you, love. Thank you. I've been missing you. You ain't been over here to see me. But yeah, I done did 3 lives a day. Yeah, I done been on 3 times a day, and this been my longest one. So like I say, I need to go make me a little run and stuff before it get too late. Go pick up me some more greens and yeah, so I can have me some cabbage in here to smoke on. You feel me? So I enjoyed all of y'all. I really did. Y'all had me lit today, I'll be back on, so I don't know what I'm gonna do. What y'all want me to broadcast tomorrow? Y'all want to hear some Neville Goddard? Well, y'all know I try to broadcast him just about every day. I got that Neville Goddard collection that I have that I purchased. I have Allen, not Allen, but James Allen. Then I still need to try to finish up psychological astrology in the 12 houses, and also the other astrology, everything you need to know about astrology. Have all those audiobooks. What y'all want to get into tomorrow? I heard that shit. Yeah, I hear some thunder now. I told you, I know when it's gonna rain. I hear some thunder now. I love you all. I love all of y'all. Y'all my fam. You know that. Y'all know You want the remix tomorrow? All right. I'll set it up. Y'all make sure y'all check y'all notifications, because I think a lot of people haven't been getting their notifications and stuff. To 5. Okay, I'll come back on around 5 o'clock then tomorrow. That way, everybody can be able to listen and everything. Facts. That's me. You know what you're gonna learn until the day you leave this world. Until the day that we leave this avatar, you're gonna always learn something. I'm like you. I'm a truth seeker. I seek the truth, which is the knowledge. See, because knowledge is power, baby. They tried to keep it hid from us for centuries. But the truth all coming out now. Even they have to sometimes admit to what the truth is. Although they hate doing it, but they have to. They can't keep it hid no more. So all is always, my babies. Empress Queen, love you all. If you like my content, please hit that thumbs up button down there. It don't cost a dime. You know what I'm saying? Subscribe to your girl. Share. As always, my babies, go within so you never go without.